Hello, hello, and welcome back to another very special episode. Now, a lot of people have been saying every episode I do is very special, and that is true. But today is especially special because I've got Raymond Taylor, a gentleman who truly has turned his life around since 2015. Having suffered from a sexual abuse, mental illness, substance abuse, grief, trauma, you can name them. Lewis suffered all of them, has gone on to create a company which has been valued at $25 million as of today. Other than that, he travels the world, is helping a lot of people. In fact, he's got this amazing company, which you've got to check, and you need to stay till the end for us to give you where you can find the details. And maybe, who knows, you could learn something or partner with what he's doing. But today, we're going to be hearing about his story. And if you want to be inspired and if you want to hear how others have truly changed their lives, despite all the difficulties that life can throw to you, today is the day because you're going to discover how others have done. Lewis, thank you so much for joining me for the first time on the show, man.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
That's awesome. You're joining me from Spain, I understand. You were in Bali not too long ago.
Yeah. I'm in Palma, Mallorca for 2 months. I've been in Bali for a few years. I've dotted around between London and Dubai, and yeah, I think I'm off to Barbados next. I haven't quite decided, but yeah, that's the freedom of the online business. All I need is my laptop and my wife, I guess. That's all.
That's awesome. And you also, like me, have got a lot of teammates all over the world who are helping you build the lifestyle that you want as well, which I truly appreciate. And we talk about that all the time here.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't have an office at all, and I've never met 95% of my staff. We're trying to arrange like a work do in Bali. But yeah, the logistics of it are quite difficult. We've got about 100 people working for us now all over every continent pretty much in the world. So yeah, the logistics of that one would be quite expensive as well. So yeah, we've got to put some planning into that. But at some point, I will get to meet some of them. But yeah, we work completely remotely, all using all the softwares, Slack, Monday, Pipedrive, yeah, all of the systems to connect without having to have that office. So very much believe in what you're all about.
Yes. Location independent business, that's what I call them, which is awesome. Well, we're glad that you are here today. Lewis, you have gone through quite a lot, maybe not now, but previously. Would you please, just talk to me about your early childhood, maybe until the time when you started thinking about changing?
Yeah. So I'll have to do this in a summary version because I know that these podcasts are relatively short. So yeah, of course, I could really dive into these subjects, but I want to turn it around and be able to share some value with you guys within the time frame. So I'll try and give you a bit of a high-level overview. My mum was quite emotionally detached in a sense where she didn't really hug me, tell me she loved me. She practically provided for me, but wasn't very affectionate. My dad was an alcoholic and he would hit me, he would call me a buffoon, he'd tell me I never amount to anything. And as a result of this, I ended up being a naughty child from the age of literally probably 5 years old.
Right.
Looking for attention, causing trouble. And that escalated until when I got a bit older and I started to get in trouble, like things like lighting fires, smashing windows, shoplifting. And I had an ASBO at 14, which is an antisocial behavior order. I was expelled from school at 15 and I was in a young offenders institution by 18.
Wow.
I was a drug addict. I was an alcoholic. I was even selling drugs. So I was a drug dealer and just a very violent criminal. I would go out and I would be very angry at the world. And I was looking for this significance. That's what it was. That's what I understand now. And just stepping back on something I missed. When I didn't get that love from my dad or that significance from my dad, I tried to find it in other areas. So I actually started doing acting, which my mum, provided me and allowed me to do. And then I got sexually abused at that acting school. So that one was off the table. And then that's when I went to secondary school and I started misbehaving and I started getting a bit of attention, and I've got a bit of this significance through that. And that escalated throughout the years to the point where fighting was the thing that gave me a bit of significance. I felt powerful and took my power back for the first time in my life, and it was completely redirected in the wrong areas. But it was somehow fulfilling some unmet need that I didn't understand at the time. Cut a long story short, I was in and out of prison for violent offences. Loads of other things happened. I had my jaw broken, slashed in the back with a knife, hooked up to an ECG machine so many times I can't count, started getting epileptic fits due to the alcoholism. I was a drug addict where I would take drugs for 4 days in a row without eating or sleeping or even drinking water, just drugs and alcohol. And I eventually got sentenced to prison again for grievous bodily harm because I hit someone in a taxi queue. And he actually was in a coma for 3 days, and I got sentenced to 18 months in prison. Wow. So that's the high level overview of what got me to 24, 25 years old.
Wow, incredible. You know, one of the reasons I am particularly interested in your story, and I know many people would know this, when I migrated, from Zimbabwe to England, I started working in children's home. And I worked there probably for a good few years, while I was going to university and all that. And what I discovered was how difficult life can be in places like that. And looking at what was the future of them, there was no future. Many of them ended up being in institutes, and it was just difficult. So to hear your story, how you managed to turn that, it certainly gives hope to individuals in those communities, or maybe have a similar background, that no matter what happens, at some level, we as individuals have got the ability to turn our lives around. But there are certain things that have to come in place for that to happen. And for you, the actual turnaround took place when somebody believed in you.
Well, that was one of them. Just quickly going back to what you were saying there, it's very true, because I mean, I've got friends that are in prison now for long sentences. I've got friends that have been murdered, stabbed to death. I've got friends that are on benefits that now have children that are probably growing up in the same sort of state. And it's very hard to break free from that. And it's largely because that's all they think that's available for them. That's the environment they're in and the people they surround themselves with, and their family are like that, their friends are like that, everyone down the pub's like that, and it's very difficult to see anything different. Prison for me was a good thing, because it actually gave me an opportunity to step out of that environment. And although I'd been to prison before this particular scenario, I was able to look at my life a little bit more objectively and think and decide whether or not that was something I wanted to be doing. And the realization I had was, when I went to prison, I rang up my friend on the payphone that you get in prison, and I said, "What are people saying about me?" Because at the time I used to like to know what people were saying. That's how I got my significance. That's what fueled me.
Yeah.
And also I wanted to make sure no one was sort of saying bad things behind my back or whatever. I just wanted to know. Yeah. And they said, "Well, you're on the front page of the paper." The title was "Violent and Boorish." Another one was "Thug is sentenced for jail for Q rage." And they referred to me as troubled, and it listed all my convictions. At that point, I had 19 convictions. So I've been in a lot of trouble a lot of times. I said, "Well, I don't care about that." It wouldn't have been the first time that I was in the paper. And they said, "Oh, there's another picture of you where your friend has posted a picture of you outside the courtroom, and another picture next to it outside the exact same courtroom 7 years before, with the caption above it, 'Nothing changes.'"
Wow.
And that was the switch, where it was kind of, first of all, it was a bit like, fuck you, because the friend that had done that was my best friend, and worse, if not similar, if not the same to me. So who's he telling me? Nothing changes, But then I kind of thought, well, hang on a minute. He's kind of got a point there, because I did try and make some changes. I tried to change things around me. I tried to do things differently, or, it's not like I'd never tried to change before, but I'd never actually looked at myself. And when he said nothing changes, it hit home. I know it sounds so obvious, but the time, if you don't see it, you don't see it. I realized that if I wanted my life to change, I needed to change myself. I just never got that before. I'd never even thought of it before. I didn't even know you could change yourself. I thought you were born a certain way and that's who you are. I thought you might be able to curve your behavior slightly and stop being so aggressive and maybe stop going to prison. I didn't think you could change your personality and the things that you liked and the way that you behave naturally and the person that you were and the things that you wanted to do and the way that you spoke and dressed and looked. All those things, I just couldn't comprehend that was possible. But I kind of got it in that moment. And I've always been an addict. Like, I identify as being an addict. I was a drug addict, alcoholic, sex addict, gambler. And even now, I'm pretty obsessive when it comes to business and all sorts of things. And I kind of got latched onto the idea of changing my life, which was the best addiction I could have ever thought of.
Yeah.
And but I've been to prison twice at this point. But this time, my eyes were open to the resources that were available. So I went to Drug and Alcohol Rehabilitation of Addicted Prisoners Trust program, which was this 6-week program about how to get off drinking drugs. It was just there. I realized you could sign up for maths and English. I went and did that. I could go to the gym. I could go to the library. I could think. I could write. I could get into a good routine. There was just so much on offer. I could do psychology, psychiatry. I even got diagnosed with a few different mental health problems in there, which they, try to help me with, and just utilize all the services. But there was one particular moment where I was in the maths and English department doing functional skills level 1 and level 2, which is actually the equivalent of about a 10-year-old. It's way under GCSEs, which is what you would do at 16. It's very, very basic. But I was expelled from school at 15. I had no qualifications at all. And when I first went in there, I screwed the paper up, chucked it across the room and said, I'm not doing this shit, and folded my arms like a child. I was literally like a child. And even though I'd signed up for it, I'm not doing this, even though I'd signed up for it. And a teacher, an older lady, 60 plus, really sweet, really small, sat next to me and just said, what's the matter? And I honestly don't think anyone's ever asked me that before. And I just blurted out, I don't understand. And that was really weird for me at the time, because I thought to myself, why did I say that? Because I don't even know if I understand or not, because I haven't even tried to look at what you're even teaching me. And then I started to piece it together that I'm just worried about not understanding. It's not that I didn't understand. I'm scared of not understanding, because if I don't understand, then I'm going to prove my dad right. And I am a buffoon. And I kept that very, I didn't let anybody get near that. No one was going to reveal the fact that I was a buffoon, because I would feel the way that my dad used to make me feel. So instead, I just didn't try at all. And she supported me, and I passed that functional skills 1 and 2. In fact, I realized I wasn't just capable. I had, could even be referred to as gifted. At one point, I wrote pi to 100 decimal places up on the whiteboard. And I had everyone confused how the hell I did it. I just memorized it myself, by the way. It wasn't particularly savant-like. I just memorized it as opposed to knowing it. But yeah, she started to believe in me. And just very randomly one day I said, Susie, do you ever think I could go to university? Because honestly, when I left school at 15, college, university, it didn't even enter my mind once, because it wasn't for people like me. Right. And I said it just out of curiosity. And she looked at me dead in the eyes and just said, of course you can. And I felt it, she truly meant it, and she was almost shocked that I was asking it. She's like, of course you can. And I felt the belief in her, and that allowed me to believe in myself. And that kind of gave me a reason to want to continue changing, because I was like, I'm going to go to university. That's my goal. I'm going to get into
Wow.
university.
Wow.
And I was given an opportunity to do a longer rehab, so a 6 months fully intensive rehabilitation program after my sentence. So I could have gone back to my old life, thinking that I'd change, but I knew in the back of my mind, I knew I was just getting started. Change is a lifelong thing, right? And we're still
It
learning
is a life.
more and more and more every day. And the time that I spent in prison, I'd made significant changes, but I knew I was by no means cured or fixed. I had a lifelong history to rewrite, and friends and environment that could influence that. So they took me from London,
Yeah.
Portsmouth, literally picked me up from the prison gates and escorted me to Portsmouth into this rehab. And in there, they broke me down and built me back up, because I thought they were going to teach me how to not drink and not take drugs, but actually they didn't mention that once. Honestly, they taught me about myself. They taught me about why I'm using drink and drugs to get through life. And they broke me down. They made me share my story. They made me dig into all those emotions. And at one point, they got me in a one-to-one session. They were asking the right questions, and I just burst out crying. And what came out of my mouth was, "Why was he so horrible to me?" That's what. And then again, it's just another daddy issue. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't just the daddy issue, but it was also the blame that I'd put on myself. Why are you treating me like this? What have I done wrong? And I realized that I'd been beating myself up, and I've been self-sabotaging this whole time, because I didn't feel worthy of love, and I didn't, feel like a good kid, because everyone in my life had always called me bad. My dad called me bad, my mum called me bad, the school called me bad, the court called me bad, teachers called me bad, the psychologist called me bad, the rehab, everyone called me bad, so I thought I was. Until I broke it down that day. And there was a lot of therapy, but I walked out that 6 months therapy feeling a lot lighter. And that's
Amazing. I want to touch on a few things you have alluded to in that conversation. One of them is really the realization point of, what, I could change my life. And I think everybody listening here, you too can change your life. It starts by becoming aware of the possibility. And I'm a great believer that anybody can change. It doesn't matter when, be it at a young stage later on, or even at a later stage in life. We all have the capabilities of doing that. Maybe you're listening and you're thinking, can I change? Is it really possible? Maybe you've experienced life is so bad. Maybe things are not going so well for you. Maybe even you begin to doubt yourself. Can myself and Lewis here be that voice of hope? You too can change. It doesn't matter what's going on around you. And when you can believe in that and become aware of it and shift your focus from what is going bad to what it could be, with the possibility around you of what life could be, just like what Lewis did there. Lewis, you said you started seeing opportunities around. That was also a catalyst of that. And I hope that is helpful for you. And the other thing you touched on there, Lewis, was as somebody truly believing in you. That lady, I think we need more people who can look at those around us and genuinely believe in others. And I can believe that if you genuinely believe in somebody, they feel it. It could be that catalyst for a change. Maybe you're listening today and you know somebody who's struggling, and you have a belief in them. You can see it and you can maybe sense it. Wouldn't now be the best time to go and tell them and reinforce that you believe that greatness is in them? For it is true, Lewis and I agree on this one, that everybody has greatness locked in them. We just need somebody to help unlock it. And I'm so grateful, Lewis, that you touched on that. And then you touched on something also very important, which I greatly believe, that environment is stronger than willpower. And that moment where you were moved from where you were and went straight to Portsmouth, you were put in an environment that facilitated growth, that facilitated change of mind, perception, your reality. And can I speak to Bill here for a moment? Maybe you're listening today. You are in an environment that is very toxic, constant negative, pushing you down. Maybe another thought. Just remove yourself from that environment. Get into a different environment, different circles, and things could happen for you. I know you, coming back to you, Lewis, you have a philosophy, if I could call it, where you talk about the change, what has to happen for a change to take place. Earlier on, you alluded to change, move, motive. Are you happy to share this with our listeners today? If you were to do it all over again, to change your life, or if you're talking to somebody who's looking to change their life, let's go over the steps you would encourage them to take on.
Well, just to echo what you said there, sometimes we don't have someone to believe in us, and it seems so difficult to believe in ourselves. And that's because we don't know change is possible. Maybe we've lived in the same area our entire life and everyone's the same, and it's very difficult to see outside of that. Or we could even have the opposing force, which is people that try and drag us down. And that happens a lot, you know, and it's sometimes the people that are closest to us. And they might be doing that for a variety of reasons. They might be doing it because they're projecting their own insecurities and doubts onto others. Absolutely. So, for example, if they don't believe that they could start a business, then they're going to tell you that you can't start a business, because if you do it, then they're going to feel shit about themselves. That's right. It feels better to drag someone else down than it does to lift somebody else up and expose what they may not have. It's like the analogy I use of crabs in a bucket. If you put crabs in a bucket, the crabs will just claw and bring the crabs back in. Crabs can never escape from a bucket. I don't know if you knew that. Yeah. And that's what happens in society. It can also be a protection method. You know, people don't want to see us go through failure or pain, or they want to keep us, you know, safe and comfortable. And maybe they think that, you know, taking risks or making changes, you know, could have some adverse effect that they want us to avoid. So it doesn't always have to be from such a negative place, but it could be your mum or your dad or your partner who's the one telling you that you shouldn't be going out and doing this, making these changes and doing these good things with your life or following your dreams. So be aware of that opposing force, because if you're in the wrong environment with that opposing force and you don't believe in yourself, you're in real trouble. And you need to really listen to what we're saying today, because it's easy to listen, but there's another thing to understand and absorb and allow it to hit. You know, it needs to hit. Damn, I can change. Because look, I was someone that thought I could never change. My mum told me, oh, Lewis, we all know you're not going to make old bones, basically alluding to the fact that she thought I was going to die young. I was one of the worst of the worst. My group of friends thought I was the worst, and I was the one that changed. And if anyone was going to change, it wasn't going to be me, but somehow it was. Yeah. So I am here, as cliche as it sounds, to really echo that change is possible, and not just in a small way, in a completely unrecognizable way, to the point where when I share stories about the things I used to do or get up to or the person I was, it feels like an actual story. It's two different people. And if they met each other, they wouldn't know who each other was. There's very little resonance of, you know, me throughout. You know, it's a complete polar opposite. But anyway, I look back when I made these changes, it kind of happened very organically, because I had the right support system. I just took one step in front of the next. I was going to the drug out and alcohol meetings. I was doing AA. I was doing NA, which is Narcotics Anonymous. I was doing sometimes 3 meetings a day. I was volunteering. I was starting off in humble beginnings on benefits, and, you know, really, really starting from scratch. And I started to notice these developments and these progressions in my life that was shocking to me. And, you know, the question was coming up in my own mind, how have I been able to do this? Before anyone asked me how I did it, because at the time, you know, I wasn't doing this for a living or had a business or anything. And I look back and I just thought, what were those stages that really enabled me to change? Yeah. And again, we haven't got a massive amount of time, so I'm gonna have to skim over them. But the first one, which you alluded to recently, a minute ago, was the actual element of making a change. You can't just wake up and you're going to be someone different. There needs to be a commitment, a decision, a line in the sand moment, a moment where you decide that you're going to change yourself. It has to happen. It's not just going to, you know, wake up one day and today's change day, you have to make that day and you have to make that commitment. And when I had enough awareness to realize that my way wasn't working, they say nothing changes if nothing changes. I don't know if you've heard that expression before.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's so true. So we have to make that change and make that commitment. So the first stage of change, ironically, is making a commitment and being aware of that change, first of all, which is obvious.
Let me just add on to that. What has worked in my life, I'm still changing. There's a lot of areas of my life that I need to change. But what I've discovered that stops me from changing or making that decision, it is worrying, what if it doesn't work? What if I'm not good enough? What if I can't do this? Can I just put an antidote to that? Deal with that when you get there. Is the time, if you just want to change, you need to be ruthless. Like, one of the elements that I know, Lewis, we were going to touch on this one, is just decide and just move. Again, moves on to the next step.
Interestingly, because you've got obstacles, which is actually 0.5 out of 7. And that's that. And that comes much later. There's no point trying to solve problems that don't exist yet,
That's right.
And especially if they're not problems that you need to solve in your journey. There will be. We need to solve the right ones and put our time and energy in the ones that actually matter. And what actually happens is you end up, like you said, thinking about what could happen, and actually gets you into a spiral of procrastination, and you stop and you revert back.
Right.
The thing with change is it's comfortable to go back to what we know. And I use the analogy of, I don't know if you've heard of this analogy before, but it's like, imagine you're tied to a lamppost with a huge elastic band around your waist, right? And when you want to make a change and you go, I'm going to make a change, you take a step forward. And as you take a step forward, the resistance around that elastic band is getting tighter.
That's right.
You're still moving. And as you take another step forward, it gets even more tighter. And you look back and you think it'd be so easy just to spring back to where I was before.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, the resistance gets so tight that people just allow themselves to go back to what they know, and they're back at square one, wondering where it all went wrong. But what people in this analogy don't realize is what happens with elasticity, or elastic, under tension, is if you continue to move forward, eventually the elastic will snap. And when it snaps, it doesn't only snap, but it also propels you forward because of the velocity that you've been moving in. So use that as an analogy to know that when you do make a change, anticipate that it is going to feel uncomfortable, and it is going to want to take you back to where you've come from, because that's what you know. And see that sign as resistance as a good thing. We talk about stepping outside your comfort zone. I'm sure you've spoken about it many times, right? But we should always look at the comfort zone, or being out of your comfort zone, as a good thing. It's a place with more opportunity and less competition, because not many people are prepared to go there. Most people are happy with being comfortable and safe. So the next stage is move. And this is that stage where you have to do something different. You have to get outside your comfort zone. You have to go and do that thing. You have to go and try something. If you stay stuck, you're not going to change, and like we said, if nothing changes, nothing changes. So you have to move in a direction. That might be in the way that you think, and something that you're doing, the people you're spending time with, events you're going to, could be physically or internally, but you just have to do something different. That's the key. That's right. Continue to do something different to allow that change to actually start to, feel like it's doing something. Otherwise, you're just going to sit there and think, well, nothing's happening. What's the point of me doing this? I may as well just go back to what I was doing. So move, and you'll know what that is. And everyone's journey is different. You'll know what your version of moving is. The next stage is motive.
Before we move on to motive, I want to add on to that, Lewis. It's something that I learned, not too long ago, is when you move, you create emotions. And those emotions really create your energy to moving forward. And when you are happy, when you start moving, you begin to see progress. And progress is really the source of joy. When you see that you're progressing, you may know this, but when you start going to the gym and it's so hard the first few days, and then you come back, you see the muscles begin to build up, you feel really good, and then you go back again and doing that. So progress really is what brings joy. And when you start moving, whatever way you're moving, you're going to see progress, and that progress is going to spare you to keep on moving. So just get started, Bill. Whatever is happening right now, take that step, take that initial step. You will be glad you did, because you're going to see things differently. More opportunities opens up. And look, I don't mean to patronize it, but if you've changed before, it is a significant proof that you can change again. If you look around your life today, you wouldn't be working today if you did not push yourself. You had to transition from that at a very young age.
Well, you would be in a diaper running around, or a nappy running around. We've changed quite a lot, but just not always for the best reason.
Absolutely, we are constantly changing. Now, wouldn't it be great to be intentional with the change that you want to make, be it in your life in general, even in your business? It hurts, but the results are wonderful. Let's talk about motive.
and just Bill, for the scientific, more logical ones that see personal development as a bit airy-fairy and a little bit less logical and tangible and hard to understand, the brain is also very malleable. Like the brain chemistry that we have allows us to change. We are like you just mentioned, constantly evolving and adapting. We are a very adaptable species. I think it was Charles Darwin that said, it's not the most intelligent that survive, it's the ones that are most adaptable to change.
Absolutely.
But that's a side note. But the thing is, the brain can change. It's a scientific fact. It changes quickly as well. A 3-month coaching program, for example, can see your whole brain chemistry completely different. And not just coaching, just because that's obviously, I'm a bit biased on that one. But for example, I know people doing studies right now in breath work. You might have heard of Wim Hof or things like that, but there's breath work techniques where just simple breathing or mindfulness can change your brain chemistry and the way that it looks on, MRIs or ultrascans or whatever they call them. But yeah, you can see the changes. So this isn't just woo, come on, you can do this, you can change, but really you feel like the same person inside and you just bite in your lip. You can change, and your body can change, and your brain can change, and everything else will change. And
wonderful.
It comes, we a couple of things I want to touch on. One thing you mentioned there about the progress is we actually have a technique for that. It's called the success loop, where you take action, and when you take action, you see results. When you see results, it increases the amount of potential you believe you have.
Absolutely.
Which it increases the motivation that you have to take more action, which then increases the amount of results that you have, which then increases the amount of potential you believe you have, which increases the amount of action. So it might seem hard when you get started, but as you start to see those results unfolding, they start happening. Another thing with change that I want to mention as well, because this is really poignant, is there's many types of change, from environmental change to values, to beliefs, all the way up to your vision and your mission. And that can be some of the highest forms of change. But my personal, in the pyramid, it's the second top, but I believe it's one of the most important to understand first. In change, you have to understand your identity, right? I believed I was a bad person. And because of that, I was going to do bad things. Everything under your identity will fall into place. So if I'm a bad person, I will be doing bad things with bad people in bad places, with bad belief systems. And that's just the way it is. So, and a lot of people try to make change on a lower level, an environmental level, or, or an action behavioral level. I'm going to go and do this, do that. That's a start. But if you can really look at yourself in the mirror and decide that person that you want to be and own that identity, at first it's not going to feel comfortable, but you're teaching yourself, and you're changing that neuroplasticity in your brain. And after a while, it doesn't take long for you to believe it. I mean, how many, for example, women who suffer from domestic violence have crippling anxiety, and because of their spouse has called them useless or worthless, over the years. That can happen in the complete polar opposite way as well. If you start speaking to yourself in the right way, referring to yourself in the right way, believing that you are a certain person, then you'll find it's not long before you actually do embody and believe that. And then everything else will fall into place. And I started believing that I was a good person and I had a lot to offer. And I was a successful businessman, and I was, going to be a millionaire. And, I started to tell myself that. I started to own that, and everything else falls into place under that. Anyway, let's move on to motive. So motive is why do
I love
you...
this. We're going to be going on for a long time here, but this is great. Motive.
Motive. So motive is why are you doing it? Because I saw a lot of people get clean and sober from the drugs in rehab. And then what they would do is they would get on benefits and they would go outside Costa Coffee in England and they would sit and drink coffee and smoke cigarettes all day. And they'd be fine for 6 months. And then you'd hear a story about one of them getting caught with a needle hanging out their arm and they were dead in a public toilet. And I'll tell you why that was. It's because they had nothing to live for. They got clean and that was a little bit of a buzz, first of all, and back to normal, but then they had nothing else going on. Mm-hmm. So we need a motive. We need a reason to continue changing, because times get tough, especially when you're building a business. It's not going to be easy, right? So we have to have a reason to want to continue to push through these tough times, to make these changes, to dig deep, because change isn't always glamorous. Change isn't always looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, I'm a millionaire. Sometimes you've got to break down those limiting beliefs and you've got to push through the doubt. And sometimes you've got to wipe the tears away when you don't want to do something. But if you've got a real strong driver for doing that, and that looks different for everybody, that might be your kids, that might be even just financial freedom, but that could be something even bigger. Like, I want to make an impact in the world. I want to leave a legacy. I want people to know me as the person that made that change. I want people to speak about me and say nice things about me. It can be whatever lights you up, and it can be, small to somebody else or large to somebody else or too big for somebody else, but that doesn't matter. Whatever you feel inside that's going to get you to spring out of bed in the morning, and then regardless of how tough things are, you still keep going. That's what you need to continue this process. Because if you don't have that, the elastic band that I spoke about can still pull you back, right? Anything you want to add to that one?
Oh, no, I love that. And I can't wait to talk about belief, because it is, for me, is a fundamental. What you believe about yourself often has a tendency of coming through. Talk to us about that.
Yeah. Well, if I told you every single day, I want you to go outside at 5 o'clock in the morning and it's freezing cold, and I want you to run 500 meters every single day. And at the end of the month, if you do that, you will be able to fly like a bird up in the sky. Now, I can guarantee you are not going to get up at 5 a.m. and you are not going to go out in the cold and you are not going to run down that road. Why? Because you don't believe me. So you have to believe in what you're doing, otherwise you're not going to do it. That's what it comes down to, right? You have to believe or you're not going to do it. Because what's the point in doing something if you're not going to get the outcome? So that belief needs to be there. And like we mentioned earlier, you can, if you get it from someone else, that's amazing, but you have to be open to receive it. Otherwise you can reject it and dismiss it, delete it and distort it, and it's like it never even happened. You can give it to yourself, which is sometimes the most uncomfortable way of doing it, even through affirmations I mentioned earlier about talking to yourself in the mirror. That stuff's simple, but that stuff's powerful, and it's so powerful. I've sometimes co-created affirmations with clients that really mean something to them, because a lot of people fall into the mistake of doing affirmations that are just for the sake of it. Like, you're an abundant, you're a boss, you're a millionaire, but they're not really triggering something. They need to be the direct counter opposite of the things that are holding you back, right? The things you don't believe. Okay. So say, for example, you believe that you're never going to amount to anything, right? For example, that's one of your beliefs. We need to counteract that limiting belief with an empowering belief.
Yeah.
So if you believe you're never going to amount to anything, no matter what, that's just your fate and destiny, then that's what's going to happen until you reverse engineer that. So we need to reverse engineer that into, I am destined for greatness.
That's right.
Right. And you need to tell yourself that so many times until you believe it.
Yeah.
And there are many ways you will believe in yourself. And as we said, with the results, you'll start to get more and more,
Confident.
Yeah, confident in what you're doing, and you'll stretch yourself further. They call it the outside of your comfort zone is your stretch zone, because you're stretching yourself, and then outside of that is the growth zone. So it's comfort, discomfort, stretch, and growth. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes. And now, it actually feels normal. I feel more uncomfortable when I'm not growing. Like that's just what I'm used to now. That's just what I like to do. So belief is very important.
It is extremely, extremely important. If you're listening, Bill, and maybe, you are finding it difficult to believe that you can change or your business can change, can I encourage you that belief is nothing more than a thought you keep repeating, you keep thinking about over and over and over again. Change your thoughts, change your beliefs, change what you truly think about consistently. Begin to question the thought that you have. Why am I thinking about this in this way? What is driving me to think so negatively or to think this thought over and over and over again? Then deal with it. I remember when I went to an event done by Tony Robbins, when we were talking about beliefs. Truly, for me, it was the beginning of a transformation of me changing my own belief on certain things. Because beliefs, really, they're there to help you shape out and carve the lifestyle that you want or the life that you need. Certain beliefs help you for a season, and then after that, they don't serve you. So they've got to go, and you take on new belief. Maybe in your business, there's certain belief that, you've got to do everything by yourself if you want them to be done right. That's a belief. And that will serve you very well in the beginning, where you want to make sure that everything is being done accordingly. But you get to a place where you want to grow and expand, you have to change that into, what? I need input from a lot of people who know what they're doing. And then you change your belief into another, and then you get to another belief. So can I encourage you, Bill, and anybody listening today, whatever belief you have on any subject, sit down, take some time, really think it through, because this is the beginning of transformation. It has worked for me. I was sitting down in a coaching session with somebody and really question, why do I think it that way? Where is that coming from? Why am I doing it that way? Sometimes you don't see yourself for being in the frame, the analogy of taking a picture, but when somebody's outside and they're asking you a question, that's where, coaches come in, because they're asking you about why you believe about what you do. And that's why, we have people like Lewis running, an incredible coaching company to help you to really revamp your belief system on any subject, business, personal, whatever it may be. So can I encourage you over the next few days, few weeks maybe, on any area of your life that is not working right now, that you want to change? Can you look at your belief system?
Just one thing I want to add to that, because it's really important, is you need to understand that they are beliefs as well, because the biggest problem with limiting beliefs, i.e. beliefs that hold us back, we've got limiting and empowering beliefs.
Correct.
Limiting beliefs hold us back, empowering beliefs propel us forward. The problem with beliefs is people don't know their beliefs. They think they're facts.
That's right.
Whereas actually they're just strongly held opinions. There are people that will die for their beliefs. Extremists will do all sorts of crazy things because they believe that they're going to get a certain outcome. That's how strong a belief can be. And the problem with beliefs is we hold on to them because our brain is designed to capture a belief and only filter information in line with that belief. We learn it in NLP, because our brain would not work if we was walking down the road and just consuming everybody's belief left, right, and center, because our brain would implode with too much information and from too many different sources, to the point where we wouldn't be able to make sense of the world.
Yeah.
So once you have a belief, it's very important to actually look at it and ask yourself, is this fact? That's the first question I would say.
Yeah.
Is this fact? And then perfect question that you mentioned there. Where does this come from? And then the third question, there's loads of questions, but a third one I'll leave you with is this serving me?
That's right. I love that song. Is this serving me? It could have served you years ago, but is it helping you to become who you want to be and where you're going? Love that. You know what, Lewis? We could be here forever talking about this subject. It's very clear that you and I love this subject, but for those who want to carry on learning and maybe take on some of your coaching program and maybe explore some of these in details, where can they find you?
I'll just quickly give you the last two because that's obviously, I just want to let you know. So the last two are action and push. So action is just go out there and take immediate, imperfect, creative action immediately, because don't wait around because you'll convince yourself out of it. Imperfect because it will never be perfect. And creative because you want to do it slightly differently than anyone else. If you take immediate, imperfect, creative action, then you'll find your life change very, very quickly. And push is that resilience and that determination to continue moving forward, because we can make changes and we can revert back. We can yo-yo diet, we can yo-yo business. You can find yourself walking 4 steps forward and 4 steps back, but it's the push. It's the constantly stretching and continuing to move into that growth zone, and that will see you continue to grow into the person that you want to be. Anyway, if you want to learn more about me, my name is Lewis Raymond Taylor. That's spelled LewisRaymondTaylor. And you can find me anywhere on the internet and any social media using that handle, because I'm the only one in the world, which is good. And if you want to learn about our business, the main thing we do is we help people start life coaching businesses. So if you've ever thought about becoming a life coach or starting a business that's freedom-based and passion-led, or you'd like it as a bit of a passion project, or you just want to do it because you want to become your first client and use this as a personal development tool, we have something called Coachflix, which is the Netflix of coaching. And it will teach you everything you need to know about coaching, hundreds of hours of coaching on personal development. This 7-stage process that I mentioned is just one section out of 100, and it's $9.99 a month, which is about £8, and there's no cancellation fee and even a 14-day money-back guarantee. So if that's of interest to you and you want to learn a little bit more about some of the things that we have to offer, and it's not just me, it's our entire team now, then head over to thecoachingmasters.com. That's thecoachingmasters.com. And also, I'd be really happy to connect with any of you on social media and answer any questions you've got. And I do have my own website as well, which is lewisraymondtaylor.com.
That's awesome. Absolutely love that. And we'll make sure that we put the link below this recording so that you can access that very, very easily. And remember what we always say, never leave a place of discovering a concept without scheduling when you're going to put it in action, or when you're going to at least attempt. And I like what you say, they just get started, and keep going towards the direction that you want to be. And the amazing thing, truly, the amazing thing I've discovered is the moment you decide and you start moving progressively towards your goal, things begins to fall into place. In fact, this world is designed to support you to move toward the goal. Your environment, your friends, your family, business opportunities keep coming away. All you have to do really is decide and begin to move confidently, progressively towards that. One of the concepts, Lewis, that I use, in starting or launching a project, right now we are writing a leadership book, really is get started, and then aim later on, like get started, get the momentum, and that if this is not working, and then you stop it, and then you follow what is working, you will eventually get to the goal that you want to do. Of course, do your due diligence and, consult with people who have done it, model other people. But whatever you do, make sure you are moving quickly in the direction that you want to go, and you get to your goals indeed. Well, we've come toward the end of our time together here, Lewis. This has been great, man, and thanks for being so generous with your knowledge and your expertise, and really, share from the heart what has worked for you.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Really enjoyed it. And Bill, I hope you enjoyed that.
Indeed. We hope we get to have you again at some point soon. Very inspirational indeed. And Bill, if you are still looking to get started with your podcast, we still have an opportunity for you to come and learn on how we do that. Or if you're interested in getting one of our books, we're going to be releasing a series of leadership books. One is coming up on the 31st of March, very, very soon. We would love for you to grab hold of that and help you on there. In fact, in that book, we've got 8 leadership experts that have come together, putting their thoughts together, and we'll be sharing with everybody. So if you want to be on the waiting list for that, click the link below. Or if you're listening to this after the book has been launched, just go get the book and you'll learn something. So until then, until next time, live well, live with passion. Know that the best is truly, truly yet to come. Thanks again, Lewis.
Thank you very much.